What's up, you guys? It's Two Bricks back in with the next installment in my building of the Arquitens or Arquitens. I'm actually not sure how to pronounce it. Uh, Command cruiser, and this is actually where I left off with the build, and I just wanted to just kind of put a couple of my ships around here to show you guys the scale. Just as I think about the scale too, it's always fun to me to think about other ships in the universe. And back there, you guys might see my Arquitens-Class cruiser. A video coming on that very soon. Unless it's out already. I'm not sure when this is coming out. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys the next installment in this series because I'm making some good progress, as you can see. I definitely had some fun this week building up all the sides and figuring out how all of that down there works, because that's basically done now. So that's really cool. So yeah, if you guys want to see, go back to where we left off last week and then see the whole building process to get from there to here. That's what we're about to take a look at. So settle in and let's check it out. Alright, you guys, so here I am back at my building table, and this week the first thing that I want to try to do is to modify the frame that I made last week, because I want to make sure that I have the ability to include these hollow kind of hangar bay sections that on the Command class cruiser, I believe that those can accommodate a TIE fighter on either side, or those are where the escape pods come out, two here, two there, and then two on the other side, making a total of 8. I don't know if that's actually how it is. I'm trying to find good reference for that. But in either case, the guns that were protruding from these sections in the Republic version in the light cruiser, those were retractable. So even if I was making the Republic version, I would still want to be able to have a hollow space in here behind these sections that would enable those guns to retract in there. So in either case, I want to make just go ahead and do like a slight refit on this where I have a section that cuts in, and then this will be kind of a hollow doorway that's 4 studs tall here and here. And you know, the kind of width here that I've determined and the size for this docking port is 4 studs tall, and that's how tall the cargo bay openings would need to be if I wanted to accommodate a TIE fighter in there, if that is in fact what they can do. So that actually works out okay, because the opening around this thing here is actually quite a bit bigger, so it would probably be like a total of maybe 8 studs tall. So it's like if I can have the doorway be 4 studs tall, I can have a little bit of extra frame around the top and bottom of that, and I can be able to accommodate what I need to in there. But we'll see. I may end up going with a slightly different solution where maybe the door looks narrower most of the time, but maybe I have like a little opening flap on top and bottom that can kind of widen it so I can get a TIE fighter in and out. We might have to kind of jerry-rig a solution like that, but again, I'm not 100% sure. I'm still going back through the show and looking at reference from Star Wars Rebels, because that is the primary source that I'm adapting this from. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started on the modifications. All right, you guys, so all that I've done now is just exactly what I said. I did a little cutout here where I replaced this with a shorter beam. I wanted this to sit just a little bit further back than that previous piece. I think I had the one in there that was like this long. So I took that out, replaced it with a shorter one. I brought this back 4 studs, and I just used these stud shooter pieces, or the spring-loaded shooter pieces, I mean, because I have a whole bunch of those. They're 1x4 bricks. They have a spring in the middle, but I have just an absolute ton of them lying around, so I decided to use those because they're the correct size. And then I just brought this back and I just put a plain black wall back here, because on pretty much on any iteration of this that you see, it just has kind of a black interior to these hangar bays. You never really can make out any kind of detail in there, and I think that's probably intentional on the designer's part, so they don't have to figure out what the interior of these look like. But that definitely suits my purposes, because I can just put a black interior in there, and then you can see a TIE fighter will just fit snugly inside of that. So you know, should I decide to go with that design, or if I go with the retractable exterior laser batteries, either way, that'll work out just fine. And so I've just done exactly the same technique that I did before, where I've put the brackets on the top and bottom, which line up perfectly with the brick, 2 plates and a brick. You know, I explained that before at length. And just did the same thing back here, where I had a little bit of extra width sticking out on these bricks. So that just enabled me to clamp some brackets to the side out here, so I don't have to worry about having all of this be visible on the interior of this. So I think that works out pretty well. And then I'm just going to go ahead and finish tiling this off, and then once I start to get the exterior brackets on here as well. This will become super duper strong, and this whole frame will start to really, really hold some structure. So yeah, looking forward to that. Let's get that done. Okay, so I went ahead and placed a few more brackets top and bottom of the frame here, and on this side, obviously just went ahead and finished off the top here with just a single plate, and then on the bottom I had to add an extra plate of thickness because you can see down here, these horizontal plates, or sorry, these vertical plates come down, and you know, if I had the regular studs of just a single plate under here, it would bump up against this and it doesn't fit. So I just have to lower that by a one extra plate thickness down here, and then add a tile that can just sit smoothly underneath here so it doesn't interfere with any of that. And then I just went ahead, like I said, and did the same thing on this side here, brackets top and bottom. So you know, these ones are held in under here, and these ones are held in from the top. And then we just pinch the whole thing together. And then in universe, this whole side opening here is much, much smaller, but my TIE fighters are oversized. So what I'm doing is I'm just making the hangar bay just big enough to accommodate one of my TIE fighters, and then I'm going to scale it down appropriately later on so that it works with the overall proportions of the whole thing. Because as of right now, this would look awkwardly big on the side of this thing. It should probably be half the size, this opening. So yeah, I'm going to end up cutting into this a little bit because it has this diamond pattern to it where the sides come in at 45-degree angles. So I'll end up cutting in a little bit that way, and then we'll probably, like I said, have some kind of an additional flap doorway thing that just opens top and bottom to make it appear more narrow for, you know, the most part. So I think it'll work out pretty well, and I'm just glad that I have the option. I'm preserving that for later on, and I can always change my mind if I don't want to have that be a thing, but it is nice to be able to yeah, just make these things work when it's possible to do so. So let's move on and see what's next. All right, so just moving on to the front section here, there's a part where right at the front of this, right where the hull plates meet here, there's a section where this kind of flattens out and gets completely, like the angle of this comes in, and then the whole thing just becomes a flat wall. It just kind of finishes off that shape. So there's some cool little greebly details in there that I want to try to capture. And I have just a random bin of, you know, little useful greebly hinges and things of that sort. So I'm just going to go ahead and figure out a design that I like for this. So let's see. Maybe I'll start off with one of these guys because I want to be able to fit one of these in here. Oh, that's actually too tall. Let me just see. Actually, I want to try to fill as much of that gap as possible. So let me do this. So I want to be able to put some details on the outside of this as well, because there is a little bit of that. So I'm going to do that right there. It's going to fill up that gap and give me two studs on the other side. And then let me find some in here. This guy will do. Just a regular 1x1 brick for that. And then I'm going to bring in a little bit of detail up here at the top with a clip. I think I like that. And then for now, I'm just going to go ahead and cap this off with a gray piece. Let me just go ahead and fill this whole section in so there's not a gap underneath there. And then obviously I'm leaving this stud hollow because there's not enough room with the hinge piece to accommodate an extra stud in there. But yeah, I think this works, and then I can go ahead and attach a couple different things to that. So let's see, I could do one of these 1x1 pieces in here like this. No, that doesn't fit. Let's see. This is kind of the fun part of greebling, and you just get to kind of pick out some things and see what looks good. There is a specific piece that I'm looking for down in here. It's total chaos in this. Usually I actually keep all my plates together in one big old crate or bin, but for these ones I separated them out because I love these pieces. I'm going to separate these out. I separated out the clips and bar pieces and hinges and stuff because those tend to break if you have them being like crushed by a bunch of different plates. So that's not good. So yeah, I separated this out because a lot of these were snapping on me. Obviously, Lego pieces are no good to you if they break. So I'm just gonna find the piece I need and I'll come right back. All right, I'm back. So I went ahead and actually switched out my clip piece that I was using there. I was using previously the 1x2. Just did a 1x1 and then plugged in that little fire hose piece to kind of hide a little bit of that gap where the curved section begins back here. So I like that, kind of covers that up a little bit. Just have a regular 1x1 clip down in here. And then I switched out that 1x1 straight, regular brick to have one with a little bar attachment on it because I think that's a little bit more interesting than just, a regular piece. And then just mounted a little silver stud underneath there just for an extra bit of texture. And I think that looks pretty good. I'm fairly happy with that design. It feels randomized enough. It feels kind of Star Wars-y where there's, you get the sense that there could be like decks or there could be equipment on the outside of the ship, but it's randomized enough, but it doesn't look too crazy, and that's how I like to kind of keep that. And the rest of the ship, honestly, down the side here is pretty plain compared to your usual Star Destroyer kind of greeblies. So that's I think that's a good enough level of detail there. And honestly, I just wanted to figure something out for that so that I can go ahead and tear this section of the deck apart and put the second hole, which will, be determined what that is later on. And I just wanted to go ahead and get that in there and then kind of finish out this section of the front of the frame here. And then once I have all that figured out, I can replicate it onto the other side, and we'll have a pretty decent start on the front of the frame here and getting that all kind of squared away. So yeah, let's finish that up and see what we get. Okay, so I have reached a bit of a crossroads, and this is part of the fun of why I wanted to design this live, to show you guys some of the different pitfalls and challenges that go into making something like this. So where I'm at right now, I completed the second hangar bay over here. I had to make it a little bit shallower than the other one. This one's just 3 studs deep as opposed to this one being 4, just because it was going to bump up against the external frame there. But looking at this, I was thinking about how top and bottom there's going to be 1 or possibly 2 plates thick of armor plating that comes down, and when both of those are in place, it's probably going to be too thick. Like the overall bulk of this midsection is probably going to be, it's going to look off. Just thinking about in relation to the whole thing, this feels like it ought to be probably, I don't know, 2 studs tall, 3 studs tall maybe, across the middle here to get the right proportions for what I want. So I think what I'm going to do is, before I go too much further, I'm going to play it safe, and I'm going to just reconfigure. I'm going to tear all this off, and I'm going to reconfigure the design so that we have a thinner overall structure here. And I think in the long run, that will be something that I will thank myself for doing, because it's going to involve less heartache later on when I have to take all this apart. Because, I like the overall shape that I got in here. I put in these little kind of side panels here just to give it that little kind of shape I was talking about and all that. That's fine. But even just without the extra consideration of the whole plating on top and bottom, it's already feeling a little bit too bulky in this dimension for my liking. So yeah, heartbreaking as that is, I'm going to go ahead and tear all this off and start over with just rethinking where I'm at with this frame thickness. So I'll be right back once I've done that and let you guys know what the plan is from here. Okay, so here is where I think I messed myself up. When I finished up with the frame on the previous week, I had just extended down, you can see here on the little airlock section here, I had extended this down beneath the frame that I created and then capped it off so that would be, basically this would be the new top, and then I would build underneath that, and so I continued on with that. The problem with that is that I didn't really account for the fact that the plating is going to have to come down and rest on this structure, and that's going to add a little bit of extra bulk top and bottom. And of course, I did think about that now, and that's what's caused me to do this redesign. So I'm just going to switch this around. So what I'm deciding to do now is I've recentered this on this side where the airlock now sits equidistant top to bottom, and this single beam will now run right the way through the middle. So instead of having two stacked up and brackets top and bottom, I will alternate the brackets like this, top, top and then bottom this way, and then that will give me, the strength that I need still to go, attach the kind of side sections here. And then that means that the hangar bay will have to be 2 studs tall, so it won't be able to accommodate my TIE fighter after all. But I'm still going to probably go ahead and do the retractable guns, but it will make the whole thing much more proportionally accurate to what it needs to be to properly convey the ship that I'm doing, and that is the main concern. So it will of course still be able to accommodate the ties at the front, like I was talking about last week with the little cutout notch here. That's still all a go. And then I think what I'll probably end up doing is making this able to convert between the Republic and Imperial Edition with a few additional kind of elements, like the bridge is a slightly different shape. There's some other little discrepancies, like the exact shape of this area back here is a little bit different version to version, but I think it would still be nice to be able to have the ability to switch between the two. Just because, the less eagle-eyed fans who don't really care that much about that kind of thing probably aren't going to throw too much of a fuss about that, but it would be nice to have that feature for people who are more, or I guess less familiar with the hyper-specific detail. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to just break all of this down, and I'm going to essentially keep the same shape, but I'm going to shave off the whole bottom section and just reconfigure how that's all attached, and I'll show you what I've done once I've done it. And I'm much more confident that this direction is going to be the way to go, so we'll see. Alright you guys, so here is the new and improved side frame. I went ahead and did exactly what I said and put the brackets down the side, top and bottom, just alternating which way was going top and which way was going to be bottom, and then I just put these back here so I can put plates along the back row of that as well for extra strength. And then I have this little floor section here which I made, just a little just to fit the exact space that I need under there with the tiles, so I can still go ahead and put something in there. Maybe I can create a modified TIE fighter, perhaps a special properly to scale TIE fighter that would actually be able to fit into there. But yeah, then I was able to, because I ended up narrowing the dimension. Sorry, there's way too much stuff over here to see. I ended up narrowing this by 1 brick thickness on either side. So then I was able to fit that in there. The full depth on both sides, 4 studs deep. So now that one is filled in, and this one is yet to be done. And then I ended up using these 4 wide plates on here just for some extra added stability, where these would kind of clamp in these little boxed sections, because these are not as strong as they were on the previous version. So there's that. In here you can see I've used the single top and bottom brackets, and I did that just on the ends here so that it would actually clamp in this section that's going back for this for the recessed portion of it, and then just that adds a little bit of extra stability to this because it's pinching it on top and bottom, whereas all these other ones are just a single one of these just alternating going down. So yeah, I think that worked out pretty well. I'm going to go ahead and finish off, kind of mirror this under section on this side as well over here. And then I think what I'll probably end up doing ultimately in the final design is that I'll put a line of tiles all the way down here so that there's a flat surface on the top and the bottom, because there's no studs obviously under here. And then there'll be a flat surface on which the main hull section will be able to rest when that's all done. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and just execute that right now, and I'll show you the results in a minute. And while I have this flipped over, I just wanted to give you guys a quick look at the underside with the little floor sections in here that I put now under both of these hangar bays. And I just wanted to point out that I also went ahead and used a Technic brick for the inside of this, whereas previously I had used a regular brick. Just the reason for that was that I wanted to have the option where if I decide to go with the removable gun emplacements, that the Technic brick back there would be a really nice, easy anchor point for me to be able to put those in and, you know, have that as an option. And then I just wanted to show you guys down here too. I forgot to point out these kind of recessed hollow studs in here that I have with the brackets. I didn't fill that in because I want to be able to have some different options for how I finish off the hanger bays on either side here with that angled detail. I think a good way to do it would be with those sloped 1x2 bricks, or I guess sloped bricks that have the little 45-degree cutouts, one on top and one on bottom, would create that little angle pretty nicely in there, I think. So that's probably what I'll end up doing, but I don't know for certain just yet. So yeah, but that's what that looks like with both of those in there. All right, guys, so a fair amount of progress has now been made. I went ahead and finished off the design here on the top with the plates all the way down, and then I tiled off that top section because the bottom necessitated a 2-plate thickness there for the to accommodate the design with the brackets on the side. So I went ahead and matched that on the top, and then that basically lines up perfectly with what I have here without any additional need for plates top and bottom like I was having before with the 4 with the 4-stud hole design. So I think that works out pretty well. And then I went ahead and just did a pretty quick, pretty easy little design for this little sort of protruding section right here, which I think is like a viewing deck of sorts. I'm not exactly sure what function this serves, but it's pretty noticeable in the design, and it has like a raised section that recedes backwards from this direction here. So this will all probably work out pretty well, I think, depending on what I end up doing for the solution for the top hole plating. That is, this might have to be a section where if I do have the hole plating built flat aligning to this with the wedge plates coming out to the corner here, that obviously won't work. So I might have to have something where like it attaches and then a hinge section sits on top of that to represent that kind of raised area. I don't know, we'll figure that out. But yeah, I just went ahead and kind of essentially duplicated that exact same design onto the other side. So you can see it all matches up now pretty nicely. And we have hanger bays now on either side. Hanger bays / gun emplacement ports, I guess. And then I just wanted to give you guys a look at how this design came together. So I wanted to just build it on the other side and show you guys. So I started laying out some of the pieces here. And essentially, this is the first layer, and then we just have let me grab my pieces that I need here. We have a black plate underneath, and then a gray plate on top. And then I have these little areas that begin to protrude out with the sloped piece here, and then these are supposed to represent kind of viewing ports top and bottom, and I'm using the yellow because I do want to attract a little bit more attention than I normally would to those, because on the design that I'm following, the particular version, it has a pretty nice kind of prominent look to it with the yellow windows, and I like that, so I want to keep that in my design. So I have a couple more of those, and then I use these bracket pieces back to back for the middle section, and then I need a couple of grill tiles. One second. Okay, so a couple of grills in here, like so, just to add a tiny bit more kind of high frequency detail into this area. And then my 2 ingot pieces just sit on the top of that, like so. So I like when I have the ability to mix really small details like these little, the kind of little square hole details that you end up with there, with the more flat sections, and just kind of contrasting, large amounts of flat space with little high frequency areas of detail. I think that really kind of makes it look more Star Wars-y that way, and yeah, it's something I like to do. So this is starting to take shape up at the front, and before I go any further, I really want to figure out the attachment point for this section of the frame back here, and then get squared away with the whole engine assembly and how that's all going to attach. So that's going to be what I start to tackle next. Oh, and let me show you guys just real quick here what I did up at the front here is I just continued down that same design here with the brackets. And then these plates are probably going to be temporary. I don't think those are going to end up staying, but I just wanted to see how that would work with the width if I was to go with that place those in there. Would the TIE fighter still fit? And it does, so that works out pretty well. So yeah, who knows, I might end up just attaching the final kind of clamp, magnetic clamp type design in here to the inside of this and leave these plates on top. I really don't know exactly how all the dimensions are going to work out once I have the whole plating on here with this, because this has to kind of gently slope upwards, and that's going to be an interesting challenge to figure out. So in all likelihood, this stuff up here will just end up getting taken off, but I just wanted to see. So yeah. Yeah, oh, and then just this design up here, just mirrored it on the other side, and I have a slight bit of asymmetry because this is a different piece, and then this part is angled downwards, whereas on the other one it's flipped up. So just wanted to give a teeny bit of asymmetry to those designs. But yep, that's that, and let me just start figuring out how I'm going to do this part back here. All right, you guys, so now you can see I've made a little bit of progress on this part right here. This is now attached. It's not the most secure attachment ever, and I'll show you guys just how I did that in a second. But this section of the ship is kind of going to be braced in between these large, straight, 90-degree angle kind of on-axis sections, and this part of the ship won't be, basically won't be really retaining or holding up any weight, supporting anything structurally. So all I need is for this to stay in place, and so this connection, it's a little wobbly, but it will work just fine. And as I go, I'll probably find different ways to attach different pieces in here to make that even a little bit of a tighter fit as well. So I think that'll work out just fine. And so basically I just stuck to the same dimensions and the same kind of, the width that I established for the thickness of this, and kept the plates to the consistent, the same level. So everything is obviously nice and even as you look at it across. And then because the angle here is a slightly steeper angle change than over here, I'm just bringing this out an extra plate thickness just to fill in that gap a little bit temporarily. And what I'll probably end up doing later on is experimenting with different plates and things that I can, let's see here, different plates that I can use to bring in to kind of bridge these gaps even a little bit nicer than what I have now. But I don't want to do that just yet because I don't want to commit to anything just yet. So, but yeah, the way that this is done actually worked out to be remarkably simple. Let me just peel these off and I'll show you. So all that I did is essentially just, I gotta take this one off too. 1 second. And I just, I propped the whole thing up on a couple of bricks, so that's why it keeps wobbling, teetering back and forth, because it's just balancing on the middle right now. So yeah, just took some of the elements off to give you a look at how this works. So essentially I have a slot in here, which is 1 plate thick. And then I have a slot down here, which is 2 plates thick. And then that just worked out to basically what I designed in here, which is to have a single plate and then or a single tile and then a plate with a tile on top of it that would just slot into that perfectly. And then once I have the top and bottom brackets here that are kind of squishing this whole section together, it holds together very nicely, and I'm probably going to support it more from the other side as well, from the internal side. And then I just have my couple of bracket pieces and everything just gets locked in with this plate. And then this secondary plate here, which just, basically puts a stopper right there that doesn't enable this to come out any further. So that was, pretty simple, fairly quick solution to figure out. Didn't really take too much brain power on my part, which I was happy about. And yeah, I think it worked out pretty well. The only downside is that I have, just because I wanted to have a little bit of extra strength and stability in here, I had this long plate. This is 1x8, because under here, this is where the last stud connection is for this plate, purely because I needed the room in there to be able to slot it in, so this needed to be sticking out a fair ways. So what that means is that when I have my plate back on here, I just have this slightly awkward area that will be a little bit harder to figure out where this plate right here stops and then the tile begins. And you can see on this side that I've created that two plate thickness all the way around, so I can fill that in here. But then when I get to this part, that'll be kind of something I'll have to figure out later on. So that's the only kind of single downside really to this way of doing it, but I'm already thinking about different ways. Like I could potentially fill in this section just using plates that I have, this way, and then I would just kind of try to marry that in with what I have on that side, or it really just depends what ends up happening with the part that's coming in here, the hole plating and stuff like that. So there are different solutions that I'm gonna tinker with, I'm sure. But yeah, I'll get that figured out pretty soon, and then once I start inserting the plates on the top, the hole plating top and bottom, things will really start to come together, because I'll have to make some big decisions and figure out how to make everything work. So yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with where that's at right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and mirror it to the other side, and then I can start moving on back, figuring out. You can see I'm already starting to think about some engine solutions, so I'm just getting some pieces out to think about that while I do the rest of this. So yeah, let me come back once that side is done. And just real quick, before I moved on to the boring part of just replicating what I already had, I wanted to come up with a couple of quick designs, and just wanted to share those with you for some smaller elements around the front here. So I had to think about what I want to do to cap off these little kind of ports on the side here, and I just came up with a really simple design that I think captures it really, really well. So all it is a bracket on top of a plate. Sorry, I'm working one-handed, so it's a little tricky. And then attached to the side of the bracket is a cheese wedge. And let me just get in here real quick. Okay, cheese wedge and a second cheese wedge. So like that. And then I just replicate that design, and I place it right in here along the sides of each of these, right in that little hole. And it lines up perfectly with the side. It's all nice and super flush there, and I think it just gives it exactly the right look. So let me just go ahead and replicate that along the four sides here. All right, so I've gone ahead and placed those in there, so I think that actually looks great. I feel like that captures everything that I want about the look of those doorways there, and I didn't end up having to use these angled plates. And one of the reasons that I didn't want to use these is because the way that they curve inwards like that would give the entrance of the door like this kind of sloped in effect, and I think having it be flat and flush like this works much, much better, and I think this whole thing looks great. So yeah, really happy with that. So the next thing that I figured out is the little gun kind of inserts. I want those to be super easy to put in and remove. So I just have this where there's a single Technic pin brick at the back of it, and you can just place this in here and pop it in, and it will stay there like that. So I think that's really cool, and I like that design a lot. So I'm going to just replicate that real quick for you here to show you how it goes. So it's just one of these Technic axle bricks with the Technic pin hole that plugs into that, and then just one of these double-holed Technic bricks right here, and then a 2x4 tile on the top, and then we just place this piece in here, which there's actually a production error in the Razor Crest, or the Mandalorian Bounty Hunter transport, as they're now having to call it, where these pieces were used for to attach these gun emplacements. Sorry, put that in there real quick. These gun emplacements, and the wrong piece was actually being included, so a lot of people weren't able to finish their Razor Crests. And just reading that article and seeing about that reminded me that that would be a good piece to use for my own, because I actually have the correct pieces in my collection. So yeah, just plug that piece in, attach a couple of these Technic half pins with the bar attachment, and easy peasy. So plug that in like so. And if I want to represent the ship having the guns retracted, all I need to do is pull those out, and I'll probably create a little kind of a storage area somewhere in the ship to place those when I'm not using them. Maybe somewhere up here I'll have like a little opening flap or something. I can throw those in there when they're not in use. So I think that'll all work out really nicely. And then the last thing that I figured out is at least the initial design that I'm going to use for the airlock. So I'm using one of these regular rounded rounded plates, and then the modified jumper round tile right there. And I have a 1x3 dish with one of these, and the second one of these upside down, and that's just going to be the actual docking hatch. And then I plug that into one of these nice I don't know what exactly these are, but they're kind of these wheel housing type looking pieces. They get used for engines and stuff like that a lot, and then that just plugs into the stud on the bottom of that, and that fits neatly into the side like so. And I just removed the round plate that I had on there as a placeholder, and I placed that in there instead. I think that looks really nice. So I've gone ahead and taken the liberty of already duplicating that on the other side. Sorry, it's so awkward working with one hand. So I've already replicated everything that you just saw on this side. So yeah, we're making real progress now. And then the last thing I did, a little update since I showed you last, is I actually figured out, like, if I just, I was a little concerned that I wasn't going to be able to fit anything on here, and then I realized if I just extend out a tile on the top here, and then build underneath that, I can just put a little section on there. Like, what was I thinking? So that was super easy. So I just filled that area in really nicely, and I just have one of these rounded plates here on the end that enables it to, have the room to just tuck in to that corner there without interfering with anything. And so that all worked out really, really well. So there you go. That was easy. So yeah, now I'm going to get back to finishing replicating this design on the other side. Alright guys, so I have begun doing a bunch of experimenting here with different ways in which I want to try to tackle the first part of the armor plating on the top. So this is all super temporary up here. I like the overall kind of spacing and shape of what I have, but all of this is going to get super duper tweaked in a pretty major way. But I just wanted to stop and show you guys this because it's an important step to kind of what comes next, because essentially what I'm going to do is figure out the angle that I want this plate to sit at, and then use that angle to figure out the angle of the frame that will be on here, because this is going to be a hinged frame that comes down, and then I'll be able to attach these sections on here using little bracket or little hinge plates or clip and bar pieces, whatever I end up going with. Right now I'm using bowl, what do you call it? Oh my gosh, I can't talk today. Right now I'm using these bowl hinges just to kind of give it the flexibility to see where I want it to be, and then in the end I'm hopefully going to be able to use just regular 1 degree of motion hinge plates that will just smoothly connect into the central frame here. So that was the idea. I literally just have a few stacks of bricks up under here to just give it roughly the sense of what I think the height of this would be, and then this part will not be flat. This will be, like I said, slightly angled up. So that's where I'm at with that. I started adding in a few of the dark gray plates just along the side here, just to give it a little bit of that look of randomization, and that the edges of these plates are never quite, exactly 100% nice and straight on these. There's always a little bit of greebling kind of detail and indentations and things. So I just wanted to kind of give it a little bit of that. Oh, excuse me, that was a box of parts. Yeah, I just wanted to give it a sense of that, and starting to just kind of bring that in there. So I'm pretty happy with how that's looking so far. And yeah, next week that will be the big project, is figuring out the central frame, and then how these are going to attach, and then the exact kind of specifications for these parts back here. And then for this part, I just clipped off the front end of this large unwieldy frame that I was using to measure everything out size-wise, because I no longer need the front half, because the front half is pretty well figured out now. So yeah, this is just going to be for measuring the distances back here. Pretty sure that this is the kind of design I'm going to go with for the engines, where likely this will all be filled in completely round, and then there will be a section in between here where I bring out some bricks or plates out sideways, and then I use that to connect in the different parts of the wing. But we'll just see how that goes. That's all going to be determined next week. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it's coming along. I think this is a good point to call it for this video, and just kind of do some thinking and make some decisions, and look back at the reference material one more time, give it a really good look over, and just make sure that I'm capturing what I want. But I really love how this all came out, and I think this is a really good bit of progress for this week to get the side of this really, really well finished off. Because, considering where we started this week, it was just a couple of single Technic bricks held in there with a couple of plates that was just keeping the whole thing together. So yeah, definitely made some really nice progress since then. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna leave it here. I'm gonna get to work on the next video for you guys. I'm gonna start thinking about techniques for this and beefing up my microfleet series in all kinds of different ways. As you guys know, I like to try to kind of capture as many different areas of Star Wars as possible. So while I'm doing this, I'm thinking about other things and other eras and other vehicles. So always busy. All right, guys, so thanks again for tuning in. And if you watched the whole way through, I really appreciate it. If you guys could leave me a like, subscribe if you're not subscribed to the channel. I've mentioned this in a lot of my previous videos now, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it again. If I get to 100,000 subscribers here on YouTube, this is going to be just the beginning, because I'm going to have a Venator-Class, which is 3 times the length of this, in the works, 10 feet long, and it's going to be the crowning glory of my microfleet series. So that's going to be absolutely incredible. So if you guys can help me get to that number, the sooner we can get there, the sooner I can get going. So yeah, just keep that in mind. All right, you guys, so yeah, I'm going to get to work. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one. Oh, and may the Force be with you.